Well, good evening and welcome once again to the LBJ Grasslands. Tonight's exercise is a field evaluation of the Fenix TK20R V2 flashlight, which I have mounted right here. Now, if you've seen any of my other reviews, you know my style is different. I like to get the light out in the field and use it under the exact conditions and circumstances in which I deploy. And my primary use case is wilderness search and rescue. So tonight we will be working yet another search and rescue training scenario. So I'm going to finish my gear check here, and when equipment check is finished, I'll be back and I'll give you the backstory behind tonight's training scenario. So we are just outside TADRA. TADRA stands for Texas Arabian Distance Racing Association. It is a campground that also serves as the trailhead for all the named trails here at the Grasslands. TADRA is in that direction. Now in this scenario, three friends, Alan, Mike, and Keith, all of whom are bow hunters, came out to the Grasslands, set up camp at TADRA. Mike and Keith decided, man, they wanted to get out immediately, just see what the territory is like. No one had ever been out here before. So there's this road that passes in this direction outside of TADRA, and they decided to take the road in this direction. They said they were just going to go out and back, should be back in an hour. That was over 2 hours ago. Alan eventually hit the panic button. We are now waiting for Wise County law enforcement to arrive. In this scenario, I just happened to be out here camping, and I got involved because I just happened to be out here at the right place at the right time. So I'm going to get out and start a foot search in advance of law enforcement setting up an incident command. There are a lot of details that go along with that communication setup and everything. I'm going to skip that. Just for now, you can presume that we have physical descriptions of Mike and Keith. I'll talk about them a little bit more. I'm going to get out now while the sun is setting, and I'm going to, treat this as if this is a realistic scenario. I'm going to start whenever I get posted up and ready to go. This will also give us an opportunity to see what that 20 looks like when we get out in a dusk twilight type of environment. I think those things are always good tests. And again, I'm going to use this light exactly as I would if this was a real deployment, which means I'm using it for everything from tracking to downrange identifications. All right, let's get started. So here we are headed along the road. Sun is below the horizon, setting fast. So even though we've still got some light out, I can still use my light. Now, what am I looking for? I'm looking for sign. Did these guys really come this way? Now, most of this road is rock. It doesn't leave any type of track at all. But here I've got kind of a trail of relatively soft topsoil, and it is leaving some tracks. So I'm going to take the 20 out, put it on turbo temporarily. I've got this on a telescoping cord, so I just hold it down to my side and put it out in front and see how it increases the contrast. And I can vary the intensity level depending on how much daylight we have or not. So I probably am going to use this more for tracking than anything else. And I've only seen a couple things that even look like possibly the rounded part of a boot print. Everything else is horse tracks. So haven't found any other signs so far. If they were on an hour out, hour back, I'm not even close to where they might have gotten lost. So I'll check back in once it's a bit darker. You just saw the step down right there. I was in turbo. been talking for over a minute and a half, and you saw it immediately step down. This is actually a very good test. Well, this is the direction that I just came from. The yellow trail splits off back there. I was really worried that they might have taken the yellow trail out at the 1 mile marker. There's a lot of soft dirt. On the one hand, that would yield good tracks, but on the other hand, that's the most popular trail to hike. And so that would not have been very good. I was very lucky that there was some soft dirt beyond that fork, and I picked up what looked to be the rounded outline of waterproof boot slipovers. At least that's kind of what they look like to me. Now, all I know about what Mike and Keith are wearing is that it's all camo. So I typically stop, and then I've got the 20 on turbo right now. I'm just doing a quick sweep at these open areas because hunters will have the tendency, if they think they see a game animal, they'll get off any type of trail real quick. Now, I'm probably not going to see them if they had an accident, fell, and they're unconscious on the ground, but what I will see is something that looks out of ordinary in the surrounding brush. Something is bent or broken or casting an inconsistent shadow. Don't see any of that, so I'm going to head on down the road. All right, we are definitely into twilight, doing a quick search around this lake. Since it's darker, I don't need to blast turbo out all the time. So I've got the 20 in high mode right now, and that's definitely enough to see to the other side of the lake. Look through here, see if there's any sign that anything is broken, that something might have stepped through there. And I'm not picking anything up. Oh, wait a minute, I think I just heard something. Okay, it's off in this direction. I need to go check that out. So what I thought I heard was a faint yell. And I've been blowing my whistle, and every time I blow my whistle, I get a return. So someone has a whistle, and they're out in that direction. Now I've got my headlamp on 400 lumen combined flood and spot, and I've got the 20 in high mode, and that's more than enough, even though we're still at twilight here, to illuminate the line of sight that I have. Also, I picked up one set of boot prints around the soft dirt, but only one set. So I'm a little bit concerned that our hunters may have gotten separated. I don't know. I'm going to go check out the source of this sound and then check back in. Okay, so for purposes of this scenario, this is where we found Mike. And you can see we're at the beginning of a pretty steep gully. Let me get the 20 on. That's in high mode. Bump it up one, turbo. So what happened? I'm going to move it on down a bit. Eco, low, medium. Actually, medium is good for just scanning the surrounding area. My headlamp is still in 400 lumen combined mode. So just for getting this surrounding, yeah, this is really nice. I could even see down to the bottom there. So Mike got to about this point. It was getting really dark. The only light he had was a very tiny flashlight. He thought he heard and saw a game animal and got his bow ready. He was paying attention to the animal, not the ground. And then he just got on the edge of the slope here, hit a rock, tumbled, and just bad luck. It looks like he's broken his ankle. He is completely immobile. So I'm going to fast forward through all the search and rescue aspects, but there's a big decision that has to be made. We have no Keith, and I may have to leave Mike. Now, the good news is I've gotten on my Garmin InReach Explorer Plus, contacted GEOS. GEOS is in contact with Wise County law enforcement. They have an ATV and a drone inbound that will be to Tawdra very shortly. So they're working with the U.S. Forest Service to get that gate to that road unlocked. And the road is just back, go back up to high in that direction. So getting to my position is really just a matter of walking, and we can get responders down here, get Mike loaded up. The real question is, what is his mental condition? You have to look at the mental as well as the physical condition as I scan around here with the 20 on high. Good news is that Mike is really into bushcraft. He is used to being out in the wilderness day or night. He's very well prepared. While he only has a small flashlight, he did have a whistle, and I heard his whistle as well as him yelling, and that was enormously helpful in terms of finding him. He is psychologically in good shape. All I need to do is get him set up with an extra headlamp. I always carry 3, so I've got him set up with a backup headlamp. He's got food and water. He's got the capability to defend himself, make fire if necessary, and he's been begging me to go searching for Keith. Well, now what happened to Keith? Well, they split up way back in that direction. And all Mike remembers is that there's some fork in the road, but he doesn't remember which one he went down. Well, there's multiple forks I have to look at. But Keith split out before him, so he's got to be back in that direction somewhere. So I'm going to leave a chemlight trail at the entrance to the road so the responders know exactly how to get here to Mike. And then I'm going to go searching for Keith. In addition to getting intel on what Keith was wearing and his background, the big thing that I picked up was that they are both wearing waterproof slipovers for their existing boots. And the good news is those are huge and they will leave very definitive tracks. So I'm headed back in this direction to drop my chem lights, then I'll head back along the road and start searching the turnouts. So here's the first turnout. Still have my headlamp down pretty low. Let me bring the 20 in. I've still got this on high. I think high is a very effective mode, and that's the mode I tend to evaluate the most. You kind of make your living off of medium and high, so to speak. There's another lake over there. I've got good visibility across the other side of that lake, looking out across this lake. You know, there's no need to light up everything in turbo. Unfortunately, you can see this is hard dirt and grass. So I may have to go 200 yards out here to get enough soft dirt to see if there's any type of track. So that's turbo, eco, low. What I'm probably going to do is see how this gives me that contrast? Low is just perfect. And so I'll keep my headlamp adjusted based on the territory ahead of me. And then when I'm tracking, I'm just going to use this 20 in low mode, keep it low to the ground, and get that contrast to check out tracks. So, well, let's head out there and see if there's any sign of Keith. Well, last turnout was a bust. 400 out, 400 back, big fat nothing. So this is actually the first turnout. This is the road that we came in on. I still got the 20 in low. Actually, medium is a really good mode. Look at that. So that's where we came in. The edge of that lake is right through here. This is where we stopped before. So medium is enough just to illuminate line of sight to the top of that rise. Unfortunately, you can see that this is all dirt, packed dirt, rock. Again, I may have to go a substantial way before I can even pick up a track or hope that I get some, verbal cue like another whistle or a yell to help zero in on Keith. So this is the job. Let's go try this one. Well, I have my headlamp bumped up to 1800 lumen combined. We've reached the area where this shortcut path merges with the yellow trail. The yellow trail goes off in this direction out to the Royal Gorge Bridge, and it actually heads this way back to Tawdra. Good news is there's enough soft dirt here that I was able to pick up a set of what looks to be the tracks of those boot slipovers going in this direction. That's the best sign I have, so guess we're going to take this section of the yellow trail. Well, we've come to a lake about 600 yards from my last stop. How do I know that? Pace count, and I also use ranger beads to keep up with pace. This dark area out here is a lake, and let's bring the 20 in on high. Again, high is a great mode. I can see out to the opposite end of that lake, and I just got my headlamp again on 400 lumen combined flood and spot. Look back in the direction that we just came, and for fun, let's bump this up to turbo. There we go. Yeah, so this would be great for assisting my headlamp in a lake search. No sign of Keith yet. I've been looking all along the ground. I get the occasional boot print, so I'm having confidence that he went this way, but no response to my calls or whistle yet, so I'm going to continue in this direction. Okay, real quick, I got my headlamp amped up on high right now. Ahead of me is the continuation of the yellow trail on into Tawdra. However, I just heard something off in this direction. This is not a named trail. This actually eventually goes to a gully, and then after that it's open territory and game trails, but it can serve as a shortcut if you follow this private property line all the way to the Royal Gorge Bridge. So I'm going to head out in this direction and see if that's Keith that I just heard. Okay, for purposes of this scenario, this is where we found Keith. He was just sitting almost passed out by this tree, and I've got the 20 on in high mode as I'm scanning everything around me. I've got my headlamp back in 400 lumen combined flood and spot. So how did he get way out here? Well, he took that turnout like we thought, but he didn't realize it was getting dark, that was a shortcut trail that merged into another trail. So when he just kept walking, and then he realized that, man, it's getting late, I need to get back. He started walking the opposite direction, but he totally missed the turnout or the fork that went this way. Instead, he kept walking the other way on the yellow trail, and he got very disoriented. Eventually got his little handheld GPS out, but he realized he only set one waypoint, and that was at Tawdra. And he was having trouble making sense out of the directions because the way these trails wind. Well, it's getting really cold. I've got 3 layers on. I've been going hard at it for 2.5 hours, and I can still feel the chill. And so he was dressed for daytime hours. He didn't have hardly any light other than a little keychain light. And so he eventually got to the point that he didn't even trust his GPS. Disorientation, exhaustion took over. He started making one bad decision out the other until he just wandered right out here and pretty much collapsed from exhaustion. Now, unlike Mike, he's not injured, but he's in a very bad state psychologically, so I have to treat that. So we can fast forward through that. We can fast forward through getting him fed, hydrated, got a thermal blanket around him, and the good news is he's now ready to move, and so we're going to head back in this direction and work our way back to Tawdra. And by the way, I'm doing this exercise with no map, no compass, and no GPS. So we're back on the yellow trail heading in this direction, but we've got this turnout. So which way do we go to get back to Tadra? This is just a quick navigational section. If you get confused, because there's no immediate marker around here, the radio or comm towers in the distance will help you out. That's the main landmark around here that you can use if you get a little bit confused. So we know we have to go in this direction. And the terrible irony is that if Keith had been able to just keep walking in this direction, he had not made that other turn and had used his GPS, he might have been able to walk all the way back to Tadra and would have had a very interesting story to tell. So I've got my headlamp back in low, 400 lumen combined flood and spot. This is where we came from. If we go down here, there's a creek you have to cross, and we just came from that area. Now as we look around, I've got the 20 in high. Let's bump it up briefly to turbo. That is the outbound of the Orange Trail. You may have seen this before, and you may have seen this before. I've been out at this exact spot in a large number of other videos. So which way is Tadra? Well, to maintain the proper orientation to the radio or comm towers, I'm going to have to go back in this direction. So at this point, Keith is doing really well. Mentally, he's in good shape now. Physically, he is still capable of moving. So we're going to work our way back to Tadra. Then I'll get to the truck and we'll wrap this thing up. All right, we are back at the truck, and all's well that ends well. Mike was picked up, taken to the hospital. Keith made it back to Tadra. That last 800 yards is uphill, so he's worn out, dizzy. EMTs are checking it out. And this means that the 20 made it through a little over 3-hour exercise. There's one last look in turbo. For 3 hours, I used every single mode this light has, and every single one of them performed up to or exceeded expectations. So now the question is, will this light replace the TK20R V2 in my loadout? Well, I plan on doing a comparison video, and I'll give you the answer then. Until that time, I really want to thank you for putting up with me and watching the video, and I hope you got some useful information.